But I tell you what, you gotta watch. You can get rattling with calls. You know, I'll end up, I notice something every year. I'll start out with more calls than I need the first of the season. All y'all just like me. I mean, y'all know different. Y'all got your vest full of calls. At the end of the season, I bet you ain't got half them calls. And you probably keep your favorite calls. It might be a box call. It might be a push and pull call. It might be a you know, a slate call or a glass call. But you'll have your favorite in there, and you'll always probably have a mouth call. Everybody's mouth calling, and I think the biggest thing about a mouth call that I like is you can put it in your mouth and your hands free. I asked a boy here today, I said, every time you call, he'd throw his hand up and say, you ain't hands free, you doing that, you throwing your hand up every time you call. You got your gun up there, you're throwing your hand up. You gotta learn to call, you know, your hands down and your mouth shut, you know. But anyway, a mouth call is a good call, but I tell you what, I venture to say, the people I've hunted around, they've gone way too much. You get way too loud, you get way too much calling. And these turkeys get used to it. And so, I want Mark here, we've got we've been selling today, some tube calls. We had, about 15 or 20 that I've had for 25 years. I brought them for Mark here today to sell. And, boy, they win. But the best call, the one I like, is one he makes and selling up here, and we don't have very many left. I'm gonna tell you something. I'm not trying to put a sales pitch to you. I'm telling you something I use. I use this call every year. It's a tube call, and my gosh, that dude will make a turkey answer. I was in Mississippi last year struggling, and I got that thing out, and boy, it was on. When that turkey answered me, I put it up. I got me a soft call out. It might be a trumpet call that Mark's got. It might be a little mouth call, real soft, or a slate call. But I use something softer to finish him up. I get one start on one thing, I might have to finish him up on something else. All right, take that tube call right there and show them what you've been doing.
Well, you know, we're talking kind of locators, talking about different things that'll make a turkey gobble or strike one in the middle of the day. And I use a tube call for that a lot. I will call, I mean, most of the time I'm running a trumpet. I use a trumpet call almost exclusively. But I really, and what Harold's not telling you is he pretty much invented the tube call back in the 70s. He probably sold one of the very first tube calls that there was. And we kind of got together on this, and he helped me, and we looked at some different designs, and this is one that we come up with, and he's been running it, and he calls me every time he kills a turkey with it, tells me how you know, what it did and how he fooled them and all that. But he's in the mountains, he's trying to strike birds a long way off and stuff like that. I'm in the swamp, flatlands, and I'm trying to get birds to gobble a long way too, because I can't get to them, or maybe I need to, you know, pine thickets, that kind of stuff. You know, he's got that pretty hill country with them hardwoods, and I'm in them thick briars and pines where I, you know, calls just don't penetrate that far. So what I'll do with a tube call is just try to locate one, shock one. And I do a lot of cold calling, which means I go in a place that I feel like there's a lot of turkeys or have been turkeys at that time, whether it's through sign or whether it's birds I've seen. I always start soft with a trumpet, but that doesn't always work. So locating them, trying to figure out where they are, I'll go to the tube. Now, I like soft calling on a trumpet. I like subtle, soft stuff. And like I told you, realism means everything to me. I want it to sound as real as I can, not as loud as I can. Tube call's a little bit different. I want to sound as loud as I can, but I also want to keep that realism. So when you hear that old hen cutting and she's yelping, hard yelping, it fires them up. And there again, you got to listen too. You can't just go into a long assembly yelp, and the turkey's gobbling over there. So you kind of run a little short series, do a couple of excited cuts and some hard yelping, and then listen. And then I'm going to listen. And usually they'll hit that pretty hard. If there's a bird there, it usually gets them excited, whether they got hens or not. And that's the thing. They may gobble at you, and they may give you a courtesy gobble or whatever. Don't mean they're coming. That's something else you're gonna have to deal with. But if you can know where they're at, that's half the battle right there. The way I run a tube call is a little bit different than most people run a tube call. I don't use a lip stop, and like I told you, Mr. Harold, he's been running these things for 50 years. But I got him now where he's not hardly running a lip stop. And the one thing that I'll say about that is you don't need a lip stop. You think you need a lip stop. I don't down anybody's call that has a lip stop or anybody that likes to run a lip stop, because everybody does their own thing and you do what's comfortable for you. For me, it just gives me the option of changing some things, changing some pitches and tones, and running the call a little different. And I'll give you an example of that. When you run a call with a lip stop, and like I say, there's nothing wrong with that, it locks you into a set position, and that's where you run the call. Luckily, the first sound you make is usually good when you run a lip stop, because it puts your lip in exactly the right spot and everything's just right. It helps you to put the latex on, it gives you kind of a guide. But once you get to where you can control the call really good, it gives you the opportunity to change some things. And changing the angle is going to change the pitch. And I'm going to give you an example of that. So I'm going to run a high pitch yelp, and then I'm going to drop down into a deeper yelp. And all I'm doing is changing the angle. I'm not changing the air, not changing pressure, just the angle of my lip and the angle of the air going to the call. You can hear that pitch change. Every turkey is not the same. There's turkeys that are going to like that high pitch. There's turkeys that are going to like that low pitch. He's hearing hens every day. There's a few hens that he's going to like better than other hens. He may recognize that as a hen that he's heard before. So being able to change that, when you take that lip stop away, it gives you the opportunity to change and run it differently. So that's Harold's, probably his.
I apologize for that.
Hey, what you doing?
All right.
So that's kind of what I like about a tube call, and what the versatility. And he's running, basically you can run the same call to do the goose. So I don't know how many times I've used the goose to locate turkeys and kill geese too. It's kind of a real versatile call. You can do most anything. You can do sandhill cranes, all kinds of different things on it too. But it gives you the option.
One of the questions asked a lot, how have you changed the membrane, the rubber on these calls? I found out something, took me years. I'd put a lanyard around my neck and go to a turkey. I'd be, hustling around, going through the limbs and brush. My diaphragm would be wrinkled up or off. So I eliminated that. I come up, homemade. I built me a little pill thing here. I put my thing in there, and I have not changed that rubber on that 1 year. I hunted all last year. I put it around my neck. When I hear that turkey, I stop, I undo it. It's good. It's not tore up. I take it out. Now, I have had to go back after I shot a turkey and find it, because I lay it on the ground. So if it, once you call camouflage, because you can't find it. But that's the idea there, and we're not trying to sell that. I don't even have any of it to sell. You can make, you want to have a canister and put your little lanyard on it, put it around your neck. That really helps you a lot. And another question we have asked, I had asked to me this morning, how often do I use a kiki run in the spring of the year? Believe it or not, I do. I whistle a lot in the spring of the year. I hear lots of turkey hens do it in the spring of the year. It's just not a fall call. You know, spring of the year, a turkey will whistle a lot of times. And I take, a lot of times, it might be a mouth call, take a little tube call like, you know, whistle back at me. I use that a lot of times in the spring here too. It's not just a fall call, it's a spring call too.
Yeah, the kiki is definitely, you know, how many times early in the spring have you had birds that are locked up with hens and got a bunch of birds around them, and you call to them and they'll gobble at you, but they won't leave the hens? And what, you know, one option is to try to call those hens. And that kiki, you can try to get those hens to come to you. If you ever have a situation early in the morning where they're separate, you got some birds roosted over here, you got some birds roosted over there, a lot of times that kiki, you'll hear them kikiing, and you'll hear them on the limb. I've heard them on the limb doing that, and what they're doing is trying to get together, and you know, they made it through the night. They're saying, I'm here, you got birds over here. I'm not saying they sit up there and just kiki the whole time, but you'll hear that, you know, early. And then they fly down, and then they get together. So if you can be that hen and bring those other hens to you and bring that gobbler with them, then that's just another bonus.
Mark, I want you to get that trumpet call out. And I want you to me, you know, I've had the opportunity over the years to judge a lot of contests. I've judged the World Turkey Grand National several times, the World Duck. I've had listened to a lot of callers. But I'd have to say that trumpet call would get a high score with me, buddy. I'm going to tell you something. That's turkey. It keeps it low and subtle, and that's a deadly call. And I'll be honest with you. Mark come to me one time and said, I want you to show me how to master that tube goose call. I said, if you'll show me how to master that trumpet call. He mastered goose, and I ain't mastered nothing yet. Trumpet, I can tell you. But anyway, I want him to demonstrate this trumpet call. It's a great sounding call. I know he killed or called lots of turkeys up with it and shoots them.
Well, I don't know that. One reason is that's pretty much all I use. I use a trumpet. So, you know, probably could have killed the same turkey with a diaphragm or any other call. It's a call I enjoy using. I believe in them. I think that there's a lot to a trumpet call. I think there's things that we don't understand about trumpets. I think turkeys respond to them in ways they don't other calls. I think they have a realism that a lot of people don't realize, but turkeys do.
I've never called a turkey up with a trumpet call, so don't be looking for me to tell you how to use a trumpet call.
Well, there's if you hunt only with a trumpet, you kind of have to learn a few tricks and little different things. One of the hardest for me was to learn to call really soft and really get that realism down low. And there's one thing that me and Mr. Harold disagree on, and we talk about this all the time, but he don't call the turkeys on the limb. That's just how he hunts. And hey, he's killed a truckload of turkeys more than I have, but I do call to them on the limb, and I do soft stuff, really soft, and I hear turkeys yelping on the limb, soft yelping, tree yelping. I've heard them get aggressive yelping on the limb. And the only reason I would do it, you know, if I got a gobbler and he's by himself and I know he's by himself, I probably ain't gonna say anything until he's on the ground. There's just no need to. But if I got hens over here and hens over there, you know, I feel like I'm being left out. I feel like I want to be included in this thing, and maybe I've actually seen the time where a turkey is on the limb, you know, sneak in there in the dark, and you sit down and you look and you can see that bird on the limb. And I have called soft to him, and they spin around. And if I can get him facing my direction, I feel like I got a little bit better chance. Not necessarily you got him licked, but I'm saying, you know, if he's got his back to me, you know, I don't feel as good about it, because I feel like they're going to pitch down the direction that they're sitting. But one thing that I'll do is start off, and I've been running these tube calls, so my lips are kind of done, but I'll do the best I can. But I run real soft, and then I try to give them a wake up. I try to think about what a turkey sounds like waking up. That first few notes, that first little bit, and then they get a little bit more excited, and then they'll fly down, and then they get a little more excited. So what I'll start off with is just some tree calling. Try to sound like more than one turkey if you can. Nothing sets a turkey off better than knowing there's more turkeys over there and there's a party going on. If I can sound like more than one hen, then that's a bonus. And that might be a little clear hen, that might be a little raspier, louder hen, a little more aggressive. You got to remember, turkeys are having a conversation. Everything they say means something. So have a conversation. Have a conversation with the hens. Have a conversation with the gobbler. Let him hear a conversation. Let him hear two different hens. All that does is just make everything more realistic. And realism kills turkeys. It kills smart turkeys. It kills turkeys that have been fooled with. That's another thing. I hear all the time how hard it is to hunt public land turkeys. And it is. I learned to turkey hunt on public land, the Francis Marion National Forest. And it has more people than turkeys. And I can tell you, they hear it all. They don't hear a lot of trumpets. That's a good thing. But one of the hardest things that I do is hunt behind me. If I go in there the first of the season and I call up 2 or 3 gobblers and I shoot one of them, and it took me a while and I had to do some coaxing, I done run my tube call, I done run my trumpet, they've heard everything I got. So I got to change up myself. So you got to think, if I got 500 acres and I'm hunting the same bird over and over, and he's hearing the same thing over and over, and you know, you put pressure on that bird, and it isn't any different or any easier than killing a bird on public land. Because if you're going in there regular, and I know guys that hunt every morning, every evening, and they go to the same place, and they call to the same bird over and over and over. And some people don't have a choice. That's the only place you got to hunt. That's the only bird you got, the only one gobbling. So remember, change it up. Be more realistic, sound like more than one hen.
Does that sound like a turkey, yo? This year, I'm gonna take it on myself I've been practicing that trumpet call. Mark's been coaching me here. I'm gonna use that thing. I'm gonna call a turkey up with somewhere this year. But we hunt different, we hunt different areas a lot. I hunt a lot of hardwood early in the spring. We don't have leaves on the trees. He's got leaves on his trees down in them pines year round. But the reason I don't like to call the turkey on a roost a lot of times, that sucker, he'll sit up there and gobble for 2 hours. Instead of me working him, he's worked me. And that's what the reason I don't like to call it. Now, if it gets later on the season, the leaves are out, I'll call to him on the roost some. But early in that season, boy, in them old big hardwood trees, I let him fly to the ground before I ever give him much calling. But depends on where you're hunting. And, I've got to hunt a lot of different states, and everywhere I go, people will say, boy, this is the hardest place in the United States to kill a turkey. Oh, this is. But I'm going to tell you something. What makes a turkey hard to hunt is a pressured turkey. You shoot a Jake and miss him, he's going to be tough to kill the rest of the year. If you shoot at a 2-year-old, he's going to be tougher. And if you shoot a 3-year-old, you ain't going to kill him that year. That's just about the way it is. Pressure is what makes turkey hunting real hard. Your eastern wild turkey to me is your toughest bird to hunt. I have run in some places in Alabama that I thought that had some extremely wild turkeys. I mean, they was tough. And we've got a place where I'm from in the land between the lakes, where I was born and raised in western Kentucky, and that turkey is tough. Now, I've hunted all over the country, and I tell you what, that's a tough bird to hunt. And I don't know why exactly. The birds has been there ever since it's been man. They reintroduced some Mississippi and Missouri strain into them. There's wild before they've done that, and they're just as wild after they've done that. And I think it might be pressure what's doing that.